that you can sort of share with everybody? Easter egg hunt, Easter weekend, red, worship, whatever. Any good stories?
4 weeks ago, at the end of one of our experiences, we had a first-time guest there, him and his wife, and we at the end just randomly were praying for different miracles to happen. And I guess I prayed for high blood pressure. I don't remember doing this. They came back this past weekend and said, "Hey, we just wanted to tell you, after you prayed, I've had high blood pressure for months now. We went out, tested it the next day and saw it drop. And we've been testing it ever since, almost daily, and it stayed down." I'm like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool." So pretty happy about that one.
Anybody?
Yeah, we had a family. There's a few families I feel like from Egg Hunt where we saw some families coming back right away, which was cool. There's one particular mom, one kid who came back on Easter that was here for Egg Hunt. And then he was like sitting in the back of the room with his dad because he was too shy to stay by himself. He got picked for a game, had this great experience. And then we saw them leave and we're like, "Oh no, like did something happen?" Well, then he came back with his mom. So I was talking to them and he was like, "Yeah, she's like, he wanted me to come up and see what was going on up here." And then Colin was preaching that day. And he like raised his hand for salvation. Mom raised her hand with him. I don't know if she was leading him or whatever, but they both had this like engaged moment and was talking to them after. It sounds like, I guess her mom used to attend APC years ago, but she passed away. And so they had gotten connected through Egg Hunt and then came back Easter. And they're like, "We really feel like this is home for us. Or we want to, give this a few more weeks to see if this is really where we're supposed to be." But just really seemed like they'd been looking for a place and were just really impacted by things. And so it's kind of cool to see, this massive wave of people and then this one family, directly impacted. So that was pretty cool.
That's good. Yeah, and I heard I forget which family it was now, but family with special needs that came after the special needs event that was put on specifically for Egg Hunt at Hampton, and was just with tears in her eyes saying, "Thank you so much for making it possible for my kids to be able to be there." And just I want you to tell the staff what an amazing job that they did and how sensitive they were. And so that was also really huge. I don't know how many we had at that particular Egg Hunt, but I know that kind of tailored ministry is just so powerful, especially for those that have someone on the spectrum. So good work. Anybody else?
I'll jump in with a story. So at weekend, which is now a few months ago, but this was still just a really cool moment. On Saturday night, we were not really planning on, like, weekend isn't usually the retreat where we bring up anything Holy Spirit related because it's more like guest friendly, but Jordan felt prompted and I kind of was like, "Yeah, let's do it. It feels like the right thing." So Jordan kind of explained what it means to be baptized in the Holy Spirit and the power that comes with that. And there was a girl who's been coming to Red for maybe 2 years now, who's been just dying to be baptized all the time, talking about it. She went to Johannes's things whenever Johannes was in, where he'd have the explanation, and was just hungry, but never really felt like she was receiving the gift. And at the end of the night, she was sitting on a chair in the back, and one of my leaders walked up and was she just seemed visibly kind of shaken. He's like, "Are you okay?" She looked messed up, and then she just looked at him with tears in her eyes and was like, "I think I just got baptized in the Holy Spirit." And they were praying together, and it was confirmed, yeah, she was completely filled, and it was awesome. It's just really tender moment where God met somebody who's been really longing for a long time.
That's great. It's good. A little moment at the Israel trip. So we had Sean's aunt and nephew along with us from Warren, Pennsylvania. We were baptizing in the Jordan River. Of course, most people get rebaptized there. They do it just for the experience. But when his cousin Nick got in and I was getting ready to baptize him, I looked and I said, "Have you never done this before?" And he said, "No." And I said, "All right, man, well, let's do it." So we baptized him in the Jordan River. I didn't know that his mom had never been baptized either. And then afterward, Peggy Lindstrom got alongside of Nick and explained the gospel to him a little more fully. I don't know that he's ever really given his life to Jesus. So he got baptized, and I think then officially prayed to give his life to Christ. And at the end of the trip, we were taking communion, and he just shared with everybody how his life is different now. He's going back with passion. Like, it was just a really good moment. We also had a lady, so Diane, I think Diane Wozniak, do you guys know her? She comes to the Hampton campus. She said she sat in church week after week, always thought about getting baptized, but she also got baptized for the first time in the Jordan River. So that was kind of a cool moment. So good stuff. All right, let's dive into our topic now. First, I just want to mention Prison Campus is getting ready to launch. I would love it if as many as you as possible could get your paperwork in, so that maybe once a year, once a quarter, whatever would be good for you to just be there and see it. So we're getting ready to launch. Our targeted start date is May 24th. It's going to be Wednesday nights at 6:30. And so we have, 30 volunteers that are in the process of getting their paperwork in. So if you know of anybody that you think would be good for this, that they would like to be a part of this, please let us know, because we're building the teams for that. We're going to do a second training coming up here soon. And Will Host, who has been a part of our church for the past couple of years, was an executive pastor down in West Virginia and has now got his own business living here in Pittsburgh. He's kind of operating that for us. So just kind of one little moment to tease that this is something good coming up. Okay, so let's talk today about how to set healthy boundaries for your life. Okay, so as pastors and leaders, we're constantly dealing with the challenge of more demand on us than what we can reasonably manage. And that comes at us from 1,000 different directions. But before I do the teaching on it, let's just talk about, where do you find the greatest challenge when it comes to life, ministry, time, expectations, things like that? Why is this challenging?
I think for me, I feel like the balance of all of it is hard. Because I think like doing individual things is never too bad. Or if it is, like, I feel like I can work myself up to it. It's more like I feel like with all the things I want to like manage and balance, it's more like how do I focus my time when I also need to keep plates spinning? And I think I sometimes struggle with the feeling of like, is it all just like it? I feeling like everything is just kind of surviving, or like I'm just treading water and I'm not really making anything awesome, because there's just a lot to do. So that tends to be my feeling.
It's good. Anybody else?
I think it's always challenging to realize that everyone has expectations for you and you'll never be able to meet everybody's expectations. So the challenge either comes in figuring out whose expectations you should be trying to meet. And also the challenge is realizing that you're going to let some people down when they have expectations on you. And I know that's difficult, more difficult for some people than others. But you'll never be able to keep everybody happy. And the moment that you realize that is actually refreshing. But if you are trying to keep everyone happy, you're going to be shooting at a moving target. So that's kind of one of the challenges that I feel.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still really learning how to sort through just echoing what Joe is saying, all of the different expectations about how much I should be accomplishing and what I should be accomplishing and the speed at which it should be happening of, myself and what God expects of me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it feels a little murky. I was just talking with some people about that yesterday. Or, what Joe expects of me or what the people I'm leading in ministry. Sometimes sorting through all of that, I feel really good some days. And then sometimes I'm like, it's just like a hurricane of chaos. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, to piggyback off of Caleb, a little bit, I think he captured it well, like that analogy of like spinning the plates, trying to keep everything good. I think I've heard Kyler say this too, of like, if you're trying to spin all these plates, you're not like getting a good meal on it even. You're just doing something like just keeping it alive, keeping it going. And it's hard to like bounce from one thing to another and actually dig into something specific to make it great, because I have to worry about this plate over here and focus on that for a time and then go back to this other plate. So yeah, I think managing that is difficult. And it's just a process. And I feel like too, there's always like more to do, which is great because it's like, there's a lot of good stuff that we can accomplish and move on, but there's always like, this plate is never going to stop spinning. Like I can always make it better, improve it, whatnot, add to it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then behind all of this, there's emotions, right? Fear, there's shame, like I should be better than this. There is, it feels vulnerable. You can feel angry that this is being put on me and when is this going to stop? And you can feel unappreciated. Like, don't they understand everything I'm already doing? You know what I mean? So there can be a sense of discouragement. And I think we all can see from the stats where they say now over 40% of people who are in ministry are thinking about quitting. And I think this is one of the factors, is that there is this sense of emotion that goes behind all of this stuff, let alone the baggage we already carry. You know what I mean? Like, put that all into the mix, the trauma of our past, the wounds, the disappointments, all of that stuff is all mixed up into one big pot, and we like stir it up like this and we carry it around with us into life every day, and we try to spin the plates while we're dealing with all of that stuff inside. And this is part of the challenge, I think, of what we're all walking through. So I wanted to talk through, so first of all, no one can solve this problem for you but you. This is one of the challenges, is that your supervisor can help guide you in the process, but nobody can solve the soul health or life balance issues but you, because you're the only one that actually has control of I guess the influences of what affects your emotions, your heart, your schedule, your life. And so this is an initiative thing. Now, there are factors. There can be environmental factors where the situation is the organization that you work for or the person that you are connected to is unreasonable and won't make adjustments or changes. What we are saying at Allison Park Church is we want you to be healthy, okay? Part of the reason why we're having this call and this talk today is we want you to be healthy, and we want to journey with you in this process of trying to get a healthy soul and a healthy life balance. And we want to participate with you in these conversations, okay? So we don't want to be the kind of organization that just says, make bricks without straw, deal with it, build that pyramid. We don't care, suck it up. We can find someone else to take your place, that kind of a deal. That is not who we want to be. And so let's just walk through. So because I got thrown into the deep end of the pool in the early stages of my life and became the pastor at, interim pastor at 26, okay, just thrown into the deep end of the pool and all of these expectations. My predecessor, Ron Bailey, was a guy that could do it all and liked to do it all. And the expectation for me was that I would do what he did. And I didn't have some of the gifts that he had, and I didn't have some of the experience that he had. So I quickly felt this sense of disappointment from people, like I was letting them down. And then there are people in your life, I don't know, I'll ask for a raise of hands on this, who are like to put emotional pressure on you. They like to leverage those expectations to make you jump at certain times. And so there was a lot of that too. Like, if you really loved me, Pastor, you would have been there at this particular time. Or so there's sometimes that pressure that comes from people too. The threat of they're going to leave the church if I don't, or they're going to expose me to my boss or whatever. They're going to tell my board, all of those things are things that people live with. So we want to kind of walk through some things. So I'm going to give you, maybe somebody could take some notes. I'm going to give you 7 questions that have to be processed for healthy boundaries to be established for your life. So if someone wants to volunteer to write these in the chat, that way we can all have them. Anybody want to raise their hand and do that for us? Okay, Matt, great. Okay, here's the first question. First question is the filter question. And this involves the question, what are my priorities? Okay, so this is where you're asking yourself ahead of time, what are the things that are my main 5 things that I should be paying attention to? And what are the things that are secondary things that I should be saying no to, or at least saying later to, right? So you should know with your life, what are your 5 most important priorities? And how do you establish this grid for your life? Well, first of all, we all have somebody we work for. And so we want to be talking to them about what are my main 5 things. And then secondly, there is a certain sense of God gifting and kissing the things that you especially have an anointing for. And so what you really want to be doing is you want to have a role where you're involved in doing the things where you're gifted and anointed to function. And you want to have an agreement with your supervisor, whoever that is, that you are in your power spot. And I would say the expectation should not be that all 5 are things that you wake up every morning with joy in your heart to do, but probably 3 or 4 of the 5 should be. There's always one of your 5 that's sort of the crap part of your job. Can I say it like that? Like nobody gets to pick the ideal world where the only things that you do in life are the things that you are thrilled to do. So most of us have something on our plate that's just like, I wish I didn't have to do that. But that's just a part of the equation of making this work. And so picking what those things are that are your things. Now, if you break down the 5, you'll probably have some subpoints, right? So, but what I'm talking about, the general priorities of what your life is all about should fit into those categories where you can think about them clearly. The reason why I say 5 is because you really can't remember more than 5. If you have 20 or 14 or 9, you'll never remember them all. But you should be able to say, bam, 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 like 5 is sort of the limit of what you can contain. And it should be so clear to you that you have those 5 things in mind. Okay, so you want to establish that filter for what are your priorities? What are the 5 main things that God has called you to do and that you are assigned to do within the context of your position at Allison Park Church? Okay, then the second question is the schedule question, which is, how do those 5 things make their way into my every week approach to life? So now I am pretty structured. How many of you would raise your hand and say you're structured individuals like me? Anybody structured? How many of you are sort of spontaneous, fun-loving party animals? You'd say that's who you are. Okay. So for the spontaneous party animals, what I'm about ready to say, you're not going to like. Okay. But there is something about structure that is protective. Okay. And if you lack it, so the great thing about spontaneity is that you can live out of inspiration, right? So I really feel like being with this group person right now. I'm going to do it. And man, if I didn't hit that, I missed this opportunity. They were so ready for this conversation. This was such a powerful moment. Or man, I felt so inspired to write this sermon or write this song or prepare this deal. And I got into it, and man, it flowed. And I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning making it happen. So, but here's what happens I'll just say it like this. There are moments of spontaneous inspiration that we do need to make room for, because there are some interruptive moments that come with a person who shows up in our life that we do need to drop everything and just pay attention to them. Or there are some creative genius moments that pop up in our life that we do need to make room for, because if we miss those, we may miss something really beautiful that God wants to bring out of our experience. But spontaneous, interruptive, inspirational moments should be more exceptional than the rule. Okay. So what you do when you have the schedule question is you say, how am I going to build these 5 priorities into my weekly life? And here's my approach. So the only way that I survive is that I have done something called advanced decision making about every day of my week. I know what Mondays are assigned to do. I know what Tuesdays are assigned to do. I know what Wednesdays are, what Thursdays are, what Fridays are. I know what my days off are. I know what my sermon prep days are. I know when I have meetings. I know when I take appointments. And so for instance, I have appointment days on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I take very few on Mondays, which is a work day for me, but I do mostly administration. I take very few appointments on Thursdays because that's a sort of a spiritual Sabbath and a spiritual prep day. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I pack my day with appointments, but not all day, not from morning until evening, not as many as I can contain. I have certain slots available. When those slots get filled, I push them to the following week, meaning that I have defined ahead of time what my limits are for my schedule. And when those limits are reached, that triggers me to say either no or later, okay? And keeping those rhythms of what each day is designed to carry and what appointments and focuses I should have on those days allows for me to establish some degree of walls around those priorities that keep me focused on the things I need to be focused on. I also, this is my personal experience. I don't know how this is for you, but I've discovered that I get way more done if I start earlier in the morning and I quit earlier in the day. So I try to start my work day by 7 and end by 3. And the reason why is, for me, the hours of 3 to 5 are really unproductive. I get a little brain fog. It takes me longer to get simple tasks accomplished. I slow down a little bit. I sometimes have to work past 3 because there's something that has to be done. But I find the earlier I start, like in the morning, I'm like, man, I'm making it happen. Like it's quicker. Everything moves a little bit. And so I try to put myself in my most productive time frames. Now, that's not to say you can't. So if you say, man, my most productive times is from 10 p.m. to 3. That I know some of you, that might be the case. The problem with that is the rest of the world is sleeping. So you can't really get a whole lot of interactive stuff done during that particular time. So I think that that's another one of those things. So the schedule question is making those advanced decisions. Okay, then let's talk about third question, which is the delegation question. Delegation question is when I have to tell somebody no. So as pastors, we cannot just say, so you say, Pastor, my marriage has fallen apart. And I think that if I don't talk to someone this week, we are not going to make it. And I say, I'm sorry, my Tuesdays are filled. Like, that is not the only answer I can give. They'll be like, what? So is there a time I can see you? Like, you have to have an answer for this. You just can't say, I'm sorry, I can't. So here's what you need. You need to know, when I say no, where do I send those that I cannot help? Because you are responsible for, while you may not necessarily be responsible to drop everything and be the personal solution for their issue, you are responsible to guide them to find what that solution is. And if you don't know where to send people when you have a no, then you just leave them languishing. Or here's what I find is often true as well. When we don't know how to tell people no, we just don't respond. So there's a text that's hanging out there. There's an email that's hanging out there. There's a voicemail we're supposed to get back to. And we don't know how to tell them no, so we just delay. And the delay is as bad as if we said, no, I can't help you without any solution. This is actually something, this is true with missionaries and pastors. I'll just tell you, a lot of missionaries call churches and pastors don't even take their call because they know they don't have the funds to help the missionary. And they don't want to have to face that difficult conversation of telling them, I'm sorry, we can't help you right now. So missionaries just don't get called back. Pastors, is this the proper use of the word, that they ghost them? Is that the right way to say it? Okay, so we cannot be ghosting our people. We have to tell them, I can't do this for you this week, but here's what you can do. Here's what you should do. And if you don't know the answer to that particular question, that is a great conversation to have with your supervisor so that you know what to do with the inflow of the people that come into your life. Most of the time when that happens for me, I say like this, I'll say, I can't this week, but can we meet next week? I have an appointment 2 weeks from now. And sometimes it happens that people will say, okay, let's meet in 2 weeks. And then they won't even hit that appointment. They'll come back and they figured it out. Okay, like, oh, I didn't need you anyway. I'm good. So sometimes it happens that way. What is often urgent for them may not necessarily be urgent. But if it is a crisis, there has to be some, so if they say, look, can I talk to you in 2 weeks? And they're like, I can't wait 2 weeks. I need someone right now. Then it is my responsibility to try to find that person a contact, a counselor, another pastor who might be able to help, someone in my life who's a good spiritual leader, like a life group leader, or somebody that I trust that could sit down with them. And even, listen, it is better if you give, so it's better for your long-term health if you refer somebody to somebody in your life who will perform the service that is needed less effectively than you would, than it is for you to, because you're better at it, to put yourself always as the answer, because two things happen. One, you will burn out, and number two, you'll never develop anybody, right? And so it's better for you to say, okay, I know they're not trained at this, but could you sit and talk to them? And then you ask for them, the person that's your leader, to say, give me feedback and I'll coach you. Maybe together we can team up and handle this situation so that what is needed to be provided from a ministry perspective can be provided. So you need to know when you say no, what you're going to do for the person that is doing that. And I don't know who is APC local outreach. Is that you, Kyler?
Yeah.
You gave me an ouch in the comment section. Yeah. So no more pastoral ghosting. That's what we're saying. Come on, we got to be timely in our response. Okay, here's the fourth one, and that is the supervisor question, which is all of these things that we just talked about, your priorities, which is your filter, your schedule, your delegation approach, should all be conversations that you have in O3 meetings with your supervisor on a regular basis. This is great content for O3 meetings. Your work-life balance and your boundary conversations is really what O3 meetings are for, right? That is where you should be bringing these conversations. I feel like I'm burned out. And here's what the reaction is. So people say, I just need to not do anything. I'm going to just stop for a while, or I'm going to do everything. Like I'm going to resign and go on vacation or put a pause, or I'm going to just bear down and put the pedal to the metal and power through the next 2 weeks because I'm behind and I'm going to get everything done. Those approaches are only temporary Band-Aid solutions on what is a lifestyle issue that we have to figure out how to solve. And so your supervisor is the person you say, I'm struggling. Like you need to say, like, I am struggling to keep up. I don't know. I feel like a way you said it, Caleb, was interesting. You said, I'm spinning all the plates, but I don't feel like I'm doing anything great. Or I feel like I'm failing and I'm underwater, and emotionally I'm struggling to want to engage. Like that is the place to have those conversations, is with your supervisor, so that you can get coaching and you can navigate through those conversations to a place where you get the buy off and the input needed for that to happen. There is another thing that I'll just mention in this supervisor question, and that is something that I love to call the feedback loop. The feedback loop is when you've been given an assignment from your supervisor and you are behind on that assignment. Okay, I know this never happens to you, but just imagine that possibly you might have been given an assignment and you are nearing the deadline and the moment of judgment is at hand. It's going to be exposed. You didn't get it done. Everybody's going to find out. Okay, here it is. And you're behind on it, but there are reasons for this. Maybe there's some family reasons or some personal reasons that have factored in. Maybe there were necessary interruptions that happened. Maybe you got totally off track and didn't discipline yourself for a couple of days, and now you're way behind and you don't want anybody to know. There's just all kinds of reasons for it. Here's what I love as a supervisor. Before we get to crisis mode, or you burn yourself out, or the thing totally drops, or you kill yourself to try to get it done, I would much rather, as a supervisor, know that ahead of time. Because here's what I know as a supervisor. I have like 19 different options of what I can do when things aren't going well. Like I can say, okay, let's not do that. Or I can say, all right, you know what? Let me help you with that. Or I can say, you're right. Man, I'm glad you told me that you got bumped off track with this very good, necessary interruption. And now we're going to just reduce the goal a little bit. We're going to get it done, but we're just not going to push it as hard. Or I can say, you know what? Yeah, sucks to be you. Put the pedal to the metal, get it done, and then I'll give you some comp days after to catch up, right? So there's all kinds of options I have as a supervisor. What I hate as a supervisor is when somebody doesn't tell me there's a crisis, and then it blows up, and then I'm like, why did you come to me? Like, we could have done 19 different things to get a solution for this. It's way better. But this is what that involves. That involves facing the emotions of something is wrong with me. Like facing the fear and the shame. And even if you say, I just had a bad week, right? Honestly, I got off track and I'm really trying, I'm growing. Help me figure this out. Okay. Like, we want to be the kind of organization that allows for that to happen so that conversation can take place, because the feedback loop allows for, and feedback loop is also good when you're doing well. Like, okay, so use the feedback loop to say, hey, I had like 9 things. I've had a great week this week. I'm ahead. Like, what we talked about last time really worked for me, and I'm nailing it. And I'm actually going to take my full Sabbath this week. And I just wanted to come back to you as my supervisor and celebrate that in my O3, because I feel like I'm really growing. Like, so balance it out. Don't just share your moments of struggle, share your moments of success, because this is a conversation that constantly should be being had so that we all can be rowing together. And if you happen to be layered in supervisory relationships, it's the toughest thing to be the middle, right? Because you have somebody above you who's asking you to manage these folks underneath you who may or may not be functioning, right? And so now you have to tell the person that's overseeing you about your management struggles. And these are also conversations to have in the feedback loop, because this is a part of how we grow, is these conversations about what to do when and how to manage, because we're not just managing tasks. We are not just managing ministry services and productions. What we're really trying to do is develop people and pastor them as we get things done. And if we just simply are looking at the bottom line all the time of, did we get it done? Did we cross this task off the list? Did we make this event happen? and we're not looking at the people we're doing it with, functioning with, then we're missing a large component of what our assignment is. And I'll just add one more thing to this little piece. It's supposed to be messy. Okay. So if you feel like, man, it's really messy right now and my life feels a little bit out of control, it's supposed to feel like this. Because we are dealing with people. We do not have the opportunity to work in a factory where we make widgets and the one thing just rolls in. It's impersonal and we're just plugging things in. We're dealing with people and their emotions and their problems and their families. And it's why we do what we do, is because of people, right? And so it's supposed to be like this. If you feel like this, like, man, I'm struggling with work-life balance, I don't know how to set boundaries, and sometimes I deal with the fears and the disappointments. Yeah, that's ministry. That's ministry. I have never had a week of ministry in my 35 years of being on staff at Allison Park Church that hasn't felt like this. It feels like this all the time, and it never goes away. And so that's not to say, that's why some people say, well, then why are we doing this? I'm going to quit. Well, it's because of the one. It's that one person. Like, it's the people that we're reaching out. It's the stories we told at the beginning about the young person baptized in the Holy Spirit, or the kids on the spectrum receiving ministry at the Easter egg hunt, or the little boy that raised his hand for salvation, or the host of other things we could talk about, the foster kids that are in care and families because of treasured kids, or Navajo people that are getting water. It's this kind of stuff that we're doing, and it's worth it all if we can sort of get over the feeling that we are the exceptional, flawed pastor that struggles with this when nobody else is. That isn't the case, right? So this is very normal to feel. Okay, question number 5, and that is the interaction question. And this is learning the skills of how to pastor the moment of no. Okay. So interaction question means I have somebody in my life and I need to learn the skills to pastor the no moments, because you will probably say no to people as much as you're going to say yes. And so you've got to learn that skill set of how to say no properly. You are not the solution to everyone's issues. Jesus is that. Okay. You are not the Messiah that has come into the world to be there for everybody's moments of crisis. Jesus is the Messiah. We are just simply under his leadership and helping to guide people in that direction. So there's a couple of keys to how to say no properly. One, smile. Okay. Don't make this a grave situation. Okay. So smile. Number 2, be warm. Okay. Let your voice be light and warm. Say, oh man, you know what? I love you so much. I'm so glad that you came to me with this. I wish that I could be personally present. My week right now is just stacked. I cannot be the one to personally meet with you. If I could drop everything right now and do that, I would do that, but it's not possible for me to do that. But I want you to know how much we care about you. And I want to find a way to get you what you need so that you can be. And in fact, before we end, we're going to pray right now that God's hand would be upon your life. And then, I'll get back to you, or I'm going to refer this to you, or whatever you have to do. And if you're going to say no, the best thing you can do is to get back to them as soon as possible. So a no, I can't, but someone else will, is better within the hour than within the month. Right? So if you say, I'm sorry, I can't, I got this message from you, I can't. Now, this is part of the other thing. Part of managing interruptions or the interactions has to do with the 19 different portals. I like the number 19 today, with the 5 different portals that we get. So I get requests: Facebook Messenger, Instagram DM, texting, email, and voicemail. Okay. Those are, I can, and there's nothing that's been created to bring them all together. Okay. So, there are techniques to deal with each one of them. So here's my techniques. When I get a Facebook message, I send back, I have it saved on my computer or in the notes section, something I can quickly copy and paste. Get a Facebook message, I say, I don't do church business on Facebook, but if you would like to email me, here's my email address. What I hate about Facebook Messenger is once you read it, that message, if you don't respond to it right away, it drops down and you don't know that you forgot. I hate that. DMs are similar. So I refer everybody that's church business to my email address. Okay. I do the same thing with text. I say, I can't respond back by text right now, but can you email me and I'll get back to you. Then my email inbox, I use that notification thing, which says I'm unavailable for the next 2 days. If you have an emergency, you can reach out to so-and-so. I will get back to you by Friday. That way you determine the way that you receive your requests and communications from people. Now, when you tell them I'll get back to you on Friday, you got to get back to them on Friday, right? So if you are filtering your communications through your email inbox, but you don't respond in a timely manner in the way that you describe to them, then that's going to frustrate people. So, but you do need techniques to deal with the input of how that all functions. Okay. All right, let me keep going. What number are we on here? 6? Oh, so number 6 is the course correction question, and that is whatever priorities and schedule you set up for yourself today. If you sit down today and you say, okay, I got to get my filter. What are my priorities? I need to do some advanced decision on my schedules. I need to create my way of responding to the input that I'm getting from text and Facebook Messenger and Instagram and stuff. Okay, that will only last you for about 3 months. And you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to revisit it because your life will change and the priorities of your supervisor will change and your family situation will change. And so once a quarter, you're going to have to go back and think through this again, because what you set up for yourself as boundaries will not last a lifetime. Okay. It will constantly be changing. In fact, there are certain seasons of the year for some of you, like let's just think wonder. Okay. The month of December, for those who are involved with that, is unlike any other time of year. There needs to be, so for you, Josh, we'll just use you as an example, a December plan that is different from every other month. So you're going to tighten your boundaries in December in a way that you wouldn't at other times. So when you're doing Impact or Kids Kaboom, your month plan should get tight. You shouldn't try to function like the rest of the year when you're having enormous events to pull off. But then you have to figure out when that's over, when to loosen those again. So you're constantly course correcting so that you know how to set those healthy boundaries. And then the last question is the communication question. And that is, when you get all this set up, who do you need to tell? So announce it to people. Here's my schedule. Here's when you can reach me. Here's what I'm doing for this particular month. You're not going to see me much during this month because this is the event that I have going on. You need to tell people so that people know ahead of time. It's better to tell people ahead of time that you're not going to be so available than after the fact. So when they say, can you be available? And you say, I can't. That's harder for them to hear. But if you say, I won't be available, and here's why, but I can direct you to somebody. So don't feel like you can't come to me, but I won't be able to personally be available until after this is over. It's easier for people because they'll then say, oh yeah, you told me that. That's right. In fact, it's amazing how people are able to find out solutions for their problems without us. Whereas they find a way to swim around to something, and so there is exceptions. There's life and death situations. There are sometimes where drop it all and deal with it. This person's got a gun to their head, drop it all, wonder should suffer, right? Okay, but in most cases, there's a way people find to swim around when they know in advance what's available to them. And so communication. And then as you're communicating the schedule, again, the overriding message has to be, I love you so much. I love being your pastor. I want to be there for you. I care about you. I want to pray for you. You know, you can always come to me. So I get so many people reaching out to me every week. I can't even begin to describe how many DMs and Facebook messages. Some of it's just frustrating forwards of whatever cause or cute video or sappy sentimental thing that people see. Like I get tons of those. I don't know if you guys get that too, but I want to say to people, even though I'm the lead pastor at Allison Park Church and I run Allison Park Leadership Network, I want to say to people, I am accessible to you. So when I meet new people, I say, hey, I'm accessible. Just send me back an email. You know, I'll respond to you. But I am not going to be the solution for you. Does that make sense? I want to be accessible for you, but I'm not going to be the solution for you. And so my intake is huge, but my filter is narrow. So I'm bringing everybody in and I'm filtering them down into something that makes sense for me. And I think there is a certain discipline with communication. One little final thought, and then we'll do some questions and responses. Is it's good to set aside 15 to 20 minutes a day for you to get your communication. Like at some point every day, you should just spend time blitzing through your inbox, getting it out so that there's a response done so that you can move forward, because the delay oftentimes it's horrible, isn't it? Like if I happen to be in a 3-day meeting and I can't get time to answer email and you come back and there's 200 waiting for you, that's just so depressing. It's like, can't believe this. So even just a little bit of time to empty that is helpful. So I know this doesn't solve everything, but at least it gives you something to think through. Probably one of those questions of the 7 is the one you need to be tuned in most on. But let's open it up for comments and clarifications. What did you like of what you heard? What doesn't make sense to you?
This is right on the money of a bunch of conversations. I'll oust Caleb a little bit because he didn't want to jump on first. Caleb and I had a very lengthy conversation with Sean about this, and I think this has been an ongoing just expression of like, is this the way? It just, even some of the things you were saying were just exactly precision on the target of like, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, is it always going to be this way? And just settling into some of those things. So I don't know that I have a lot to add, but just to say, I will definitely want to save this recording for myself, but also for future generations of people, because I think that this is, I was thinking this yesterday. I was like, man, I wish we had something recorded that's like, especially for the beginning, I think for all of ministry, but especially for those first little bit when you're just trying to figure things out and are like getting used to things. So anyway, I'm talking a lot, but it's right on the money.
So let's how about Greg? What's your thoughts on this? I know you deal with this for a long time too, been on staff here as a supervisor.
I remember the days when I wasn't the supervisor and I was underneath this, and the constant stress of just trying to grind things out and get stuff done was horrific. As a supervisor, I just, for all those of you who are younger, newer, I love when Jimmy, Sam, Rich come to me and tell me, I'm behind on something, help. That is the greatest moment for me, because I actually can help them in those moments. When they come to me and say the deadline is tomorrow, and say, hey, I didn't get this done, I'm ready to put them through a wall at that moment. So it's like, why did you tell me 2 weeks ago? I was afraid to. And then I started asking questions. What do I do that makes you afraid of me? So the best thing to do is the feedback loop.
Greg, it might be the comment, I'm going to put him through the wall.
Maybe.
Or putting drills through your
Nate.
finger. That would scare me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did scream like a little middle school girl when I did that, but I did pull it out myself. But yeah, the best thing to do is a feedback loop. When you're behind on something, when something is not going to hit the deadlines, when you know that events, talk soon. That's the greatest thing you can do. And we'll figure out a solution. And you can even ask Jimmy and Sam. Usually my response is, okay, when can you get it done by? I mean, that's my common solution. When can you get it? And if it's, there are some things that are deadline. Egg hunt is happening in 2 weeks. It's not an option to not have eggs. So how do we get this done? And I will come in with solutions, but yeah, the best thing is a feedback loop, quick and early.
Yeah. So some of this too isn't a fear of supervisor. It sometimes is just an internal thing for us. Like, okay, Pastor Debbie's not on this call. Maybe she'll listen to it later. I'm sorry, Debbie, for sharing personal illustrations, but she and I worked together for so long. And the way that I came up with the feedback loop was in dealing with her, because Debbie is a machine. Like, okay, she's a little bit less this now as what she was probably 20 years ago now. She's more just dealing with people, but she was both pastor to people and administrative machine. And so as my administrative assistant for the longest time, she would come in with her little, yellow notebook with all the lines, and she'd have a 30 item task list. And she would say, I'm not going to get all this done. And I would want to, as her supervisor, protect her and say, well, let me look at this now. And I will cross off the list the things I don't want you to do. That was a really difficult thing, because it required for her to let me set the priority. And there were some things on that list that she really, really cared about. And so that's part of the challenge. And then she often would be like, I can get this done. And so I would say, don't do these 5 things. And then she would stay till 8 o'clock and get it done. And then she would be tired the next day. And I would be like, why did you stay? I told you not to stay. Like, okay, so you do need to let the people in your life that care about you protect you from yourself. So at times, the reason why you overwork or push too hard or do too much is because you love it. You love what you get to do. You love the ministry. You love working to see it happen. You want to make this event great. And if I just work an extra hour, I can make this happen. And it's not because you're afraid of failure, and it's not because you were playing video games or whatever. It's because you really love it. And at some point, somebody has to say, enough, don't. Go home. Spend time with your wife, your husband, do what you need to do. And I can see the trends in your life, and I know this is too much, and you really need to listen to this. Like, let the event be a little less than it would have been. It's okay if it's 90% and not 110%, because you are more important than the egg hunt. Okay. And that is something we do want to say to you, is you are more important to us than any event we have. Mm-hmm. And so if there is a line drawn for you by somebody, then accept that. And I know it doesn't always happen. And so let's go back to Debbie. I was always thankful for what Debbie did. Like, wow, extra mile, extra 2 miles, extra 3 miles. Look at that. Look at what she's doing. And it was amazing. But I also wanted to be a good pastor and good boss to her and say, you got to do less. And so that's sort of the dance, I guess, with this is knowing yourself, letting yourself, being undercovering. This is what being undercovering is partially all about. It's not just doing what you're told or submitting your attitude to something. It really is letting someone protect you properly. And so that's part of what this whole journey is as well. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments? I know we don't want to go past 9, but
I'm gonna get the phrase "you're more important than the egg hunt" tattooed on my chest. That spoke to me.
Love it. Okay. Well, let's close in prayer. And thanks for being here today. God, we just ask for your help. We love what we are called to do. We love getting to minister to people. We love the stories of life change. We also want to be intimate with you. We want to be healthy. We want to be filled with joy. We want to be living in our calling. And so we just ask that you give us the wisdom and the courage to build the boundaries that are necessary. And for anybody who's really struggling right now, and maybe that's hidden, I just pray that throughout this week, Lord, you would bring the ministry that they need and strengthen them in their soul. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys, have a good one.